It's my pleasure to welcome to the studio Armen Vartanian. Good evening. Welcome to the program. It's great to have you here.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, it's you're actually very much involved at the CSR conference as well. You're presenting there.
Yeah, that was today. Today was the conclusion of a 2-day CSR called the CSR Summit.
The second
Summit. One.
How did you find it? How did you?
Well, I didn't attend last year, and this event was pretty good. That sounds generic, I guess. But,
it was
well attended,
which is amazing. That's
the
what I
right
heard.
People were there.
Yeah, which is another big issue, isn't it?
And it was a combination of, we'll call them service providers.
Yeah.
And people responsible for corporate social responsibility or CSR within organizations. And the other thing is it wasn't all UAE people. And I think that combination showed that there's, a growing movement around this concept of CSR.
Which is really important, and the fact that, as we continue to talk, you don't have to go very far to look at global papers about, I was reading this week in New York Times, another 4 American banks have failed, smaller banks, but another 4 have packed it in. We've got all sorts of issues going on with Spain and that environment with financial stuff. I mean, there's a lot of things still happening, and when we start talking about conferences and gatherings and getting people together to talk about things like CSR, corporate social responsibility, one of the things people start doing is they feel their wallet and saying, well, maybe this isn't the time to be sending my employees or some of my key speakers or key thinkers out into the field to enjoy a few days. And it's really proven to be the opposite. People have sort of said this is a great time to do this.
I think that is the case, and one reason is that the people involved have other functions, and I think they basically have a budget for at least planning CSR type initiatives. So by having a budget, you can then send people, but if it's only CSR, those budgets have been cut.
Okay.
So it's typically from what I observed, if there's another function like marketing, even at the board level, etc., then they're able to carve out funds to to attend these events. And the driver is it's an important.
We're going to take a really short pause, Armen. When we come back, I want to find all about Eco Ventures, what you're doing, and I want to talk about what you were presenting as well, and how that whole, how you got into this industry as well, because there's some great stories here, and I'd like to be able to share them here on the program. I'm joined in the studio by the director of Eco Ventures. Armen, you're here, and someone's listening right now, and they're going, okay, what is Eco Ventures? What is it that you guys do? He takes a deep breath.
Yeah. Not because I'm going to talk for a while. I could, I guess. But Eco Ventures is an emissions reduction and carbon footprint advisory firm.
Okay.
So, if there's value to you of measuring your carbon footprint and finding ways to reduce it, including generating carbon credits, then we can help.
Okay. Now, when we talk carbon footprint stuff, we've got a couple of different bodies of thought out there. We've got the Al Gores who are out there, and they're he's strong. He's going very strong about carbon footprint. And then you've got some naysayers on the other side who are saying, hold it a second. That there's a whole camp in the UK that in other parts of Europe that come out on the other side. Some of them hard scientists. How do you guys work with companies? How do you convince them if they're sort of on the fence? Say, okay, look, you need to start thinking about this, and this can factor into your balance sheet at the end of the day. How do you guys do that? Because a lot of people sort of sit and look and go, it sounds like a lot of gobbledygook. It's fashionable.
Okay. That's
lots of questions there.
Yeah. No. So let me start with the science.
Okay.
We're not scientists, so the basis of our Eco Ventures is that climate change is happening in part due to human activity. And the science for a period, over a long period, seemed to support that. And I think it does support that. There are, in any science endeavor, there are two sides, because this is sort of the philosophy of science stuff, right? Yeah. But we are building on the fact that scientists have agreed that something is happening and something needs, and then policymakers have taken that info and so we got to do something about it to avoid some sort of catastrophic change. So then they took it a step further and established the concept of carbon footprint. So the naysayers, in order to prove their point, should successfully demonstrate that human beings are not contributing to climate change. Then the basis for eco-ventures goes away.
Yeah.
So
and they haven't been able to do that yet.
Well, it's not that they haven't been able to. It's more like you could argue the other side, right? To say the evidence is mainly in support, and enough so, and I think overwhelmingly so. So then you have the other set of questions which you asked around. Okay, let's say that someone says, "All right, I want to do something about it." Well, what's the value here? And from that perspective, it's a risk management issue, right? And there's the extreme where a company wants to prepare for future legislation, which is unlikely in the UAE in the near future, but
you never know.
And then you have, some customers are asking about it, right? Maybe I don't agree with the customers, but they're the customer.
Right.
So in order to address customer requirements, like Walmart, for example, in a couple of cases we've done a greenhouse gas or carbon footprint assessment for a company that needed to meet Walmart's requirements, right? And then you have a sense of what is right and what is good, and that can be from the board or general management or a particular marketing department that wants to differentiate itself in a marketplace. So each of these different, in a corporate setting, stakeholders put value on the information of knowing what one's carbon footprint is, right? And some clients don't. They say, okay, this is not worth the effort, or I'll wait, or et cetera.
Which is a really tough area to navigate, isn't it? I mean, when you've in a sense, we've got fairly compelling evidence that points in a specific direction, and if you watch the 11th hour narrated by Leonardo DiCaprio, it's the 11th hour into the 59th minute that we need to do things, and we need to start thinking about whether there's legislation or not. We need to be thinking about our role in our environment, and to sort of bring that forward, that's ultimately where you guys are at, isn't it? And
as a private business, we have a challenge. If you look at the sales process generically, which I learned back in business school, awareness, interest, desire, action, right? And so action is where we would get paid, right? And the desire to do action is because they're ready to do something about it. The UAE is in the awareness stage. They're getting awareness of carbon footprint. And that is an education, a long-term play. It'll be a few years before people get into the action stage. Now there's some interest by some organizations. I'm sure you've even had them on where they talk about environment as being important to their organization.
Sure.
So if you look at that hierarchy, yes, it's challenging, but as a small business, we find those who we call leaders, and we like working with those people.
We were talking a little bit about this as I have a lot of guests come on. We talk about it's tough times, and what you're offering is something that, in a sense, it's a pay it forward service. I mean, in that what the client gets from it is they're paying forward into a better environment down the road, or better customer service, better customer relations, feel good factor. That I know I'm harping on this, but that becomes something that requires almost a paradigm shift to change people's thinking a bit.